Okay, Brent, why don't we go ahead and kick things off here?
We're live on YouTube now.
Great. If we can get the slides populated, whoever is controlling the slides.
Shannon is.
Oh, awesome. Great. Well, welcome everyone. We'll do official welcomes here in just a second. We'll get through some of our housekeeping matters. Welcome to the January 12th Community Advisory Group. Once again, Johnell Bell, co-facilitator of the Community Advisory Group. Brent, I think you're going to walk us through these initial slides.
We do have closed caption available in English and Spanish tonight, with English available in Zoom and closed caption in Zoom itself, and then closed caption in Spanish available in a separate browser. To reach the Spanish version, go to https://ibr.news/captions, and there's a area to change the setting for the type of translation it is. Within the Zoom meeting, click on closed captions, and if you lose that, go ahead and just hover your mouse or move your mouse or touch the screen if you're on a touch device. Other than that, should work just fine. Please let me know if it doesn't. Not sure if we have ASL interpretation today. Maybe that's one of the members that is sitting in the waiting room. Salome, if you could, if those names look familiar, please admit them. But in the effort to continue to center equity, there's an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you'll be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You'll still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. And some just participation tips. Thanks for joining. Please join by audio or phone or computer, but not both. We encourage you to keep your video on. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. If you do experience any technical difficulties, please contact program staff at 360-329-6744. And later on in the evening, we do have some public input. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting around 5:45 p.m. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time, with the option to turn on your web camera. Please use a link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR CAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment via phone, dial 1-669-900-6833 or 1-408-638-060968. The meeting ID is 993-5459-6043, and the passcode is 674942. Dial *9 to raise your hand, and after you're invited to speak, dial *6 to unmute yourself. To submit comments after the meeting, fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CAG Public Comment in the subject line. You can call 360-859-0494 for Washington residents, 503-897-9218 for Oregon residents, or 888-503-6735 toll-free, and state CAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CAG Public Comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of the next meeting.
Great, thank you for that, Brent. Just a reminder, I think actually, Lisa, we're having you cover these pieces. So I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Happy New Year. I'm really excited to see everyone. We're glad to be connecting again. And as we like to do in each of our meetings, we'd like to just center the space around relationships, staying focused on our common goal, noticing the power dynamics in the room, and creating a space for multiple truths and norms, being kind and brave. We'd like to practice examining racially biased systems and processes and look for learning. And these were actually the result of some of our early work in 2020, which I was thinking back that it's been exactly 2 years since we've done orientation with this group, much to be celebrated. So this leads us right to our meeting agenda, and I will turn it over to our co-chair, Mr. Washington.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to, on behalf of Lynn and myself and everybody that support us, I want to wish you all a wonderful, happy New Year. Hope that you had a wonderful holiday season. It's been a while since we have seen each other. Today, as we go through the meeting, you will have the opportunity to give some input, some good input, because I know all of your input is good. So look forward to hearing from you. And just good to see you all again. It seems like it's been a long, long time since we've been on TV. Okay. That's it for me. Give it back to the program administrator.
I think we might have a couple additional, unless Greg, you'd like to maybe do a welcome as well.
I was going to see if Lynn had some comments she wanted to make, and then I can follow up and jump into my update.
Greg and everybody, I think I forgot to give the CAG members. Do we want them to go now with the open discussion? CAG members, where they go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. What we're hoping to be able to allow is a little space for each of us to get to know one another a little bit, reset, and we'd love for folks to share your name, your organizational affiliation or at-large status, pronouns, any reflections that you might have. And so certainly voluntary, but if anyone would like to share, we'd love for that to be part of our kickoff today. Lynn, did you have any additional thoughts that you wanted to share before we kind of open it up to the full CAG?
No, but can I go first? Hearing no objection. I'm Lynn Valenter. I'm the co-chair of CAG. My pronouns are she, her. And what I'm most proud of in 2022 is that the day after Thanksgiving, we welcomed our 5th grandchild. So it was an exciting year in many ways, but I'll call that one out. And with that, I think the next volunteer, rather than me calling on someone.
I think Whitney has her hand up.
Hi, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Whitney Moss.
I think you got muted there.
You're muted, Whitney.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Whitney Mostak. I'm the General Counsel Secretary for the Cowlitz Indian Tribe, and I'm the Cowlitz representative on this group by our tribal council. I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and I gave birth to Miss Madison last year. That's one of my big pieces of last year. So it's all for me.
Thank you, Whitney. Looks like Sam's up next, and then Bill.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody. So my name is Sam Kim. I'm a super commuter. I work for Washington County in Hillsboro, Oregon. I live in Brush Prairie in Washington State. So it's an amazing commute. Let's see, my pronouns are they, he, and I guess the most significant, most proud moment is that the Chief Information Officer of Washington County has retired, and I am now the interim CIO for Washington County.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great, and I'm Bill Prowse with the Oregon Association of Minority Entrepreneurs, and it's been a great opportunity to bring some of our members into this conversation. We've had folks speak over here a couple of times and some good input. And I'm most proud of that I hit my 10-year anniversary with this organization, never thinking I would ever be here for 10 years, but I hit 10 years last August and working on my 11th. We'll see how much longer that happens, but glad to be here.
Congratulations. Martha, and then Tom Hickey.
Yeah, I'm Martha Wiley, and I'm a member at large, but I am focused on transit issues. I don't drive, so I'm always interested in how transit will be affected or improved by this project. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Martha. Tom?
Hi, I'm going to leave my video off because apparently it's going bonkers. I was originally brought in as chair of the Bridgeton Neighborhood Association to represent North Portland neighborhoods. I'm no longer chair of Bridgeton, but I still sit on that board. But I am here to make sure that the bridge brings the best possible results for the North Portland neighborhoods in terms of the intersections at Hayden Island and Marine Drive.
Thanks, Tom. Irina, and then Dina.
Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So I'm Irina Phillips. I represent East European Coalition, so refugees and immigrants who came from Eastern Europe. And 2022 was a difficult year for my community because there is a war between Russia and Ukraine. And I hope it will end soon and Russia will do something and Putin will be kicked out of power. As for the bridge community, I represent the guys there are many truckers who came from Eastern Europe. So they involved as users of the bridge and also community spread both in Oregon and Washington. And you probably know that Russian language was the third most common spoken language at home in Oregon during 2019. I don't know what's the review now, but there are lots of people living on both sides of the Columbia who speak languages from Eastern Europe. And my interest kind of like to share what's going on with the community that I represent.
Thank you, Irina. Dina?
So I'm Dina Horton. I'm the Government Relations Director at Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. My pronouns are she, her, and I am, on the committee representing the river users and multimodal freight users for the community advisory group. Looking back on 2022, personally at work, it was a fantastic year for the things we were trying to accomplish. And then personally at home, I was really glad to survive COVID and also to help my mom in her surviving and post-treatment for breast cancer. So really happy to have good health going into 2023.
Thank you, Dina. Any other CAG members that might want to share? Oh, Darcy, hi.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year. I'm Darcy Hoffman. I am with Workforce Southwest Washington. We're the workforce board that serves Clark, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum counties. Pronouns are she, her. And I think reflecting on 2022, one of the things that I'm the most excited about or proud of is that our team at WSW worked really hard for about a year with our community to develop and roll out a quality jobs framework. And we launched over the summer and are now working to implement, and I'm super proud of the work that we've done. So thanks for asking, and great to see everyone.
Thank you, Darcy. Mr. Washington, you have your hand up. You want to share, I'm assuming?
Yes. Thank you. I apologize for running to the next thing before doing this, but my pronouns are he, him. And two wonderful things happened for me this last year. And the first one, that I had an opportunity to go to Korea to present to the government in Ulsan, Korea, and talk about the many things that we do in Portland. And then just a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to do a cruise in the Caribbean, particularly in the area of Central America. And it was such a wonderful experience for me, and I appreciate so much what we have here at home when you have the opportunity to visit places like that and go down some of their back roads. We're so very, very fortunate here. And I think the most exciting part of it for me was really to have the opportunity to see ships going through the Panama Canal, because that was one of the places where we went through, and something that I studied about when I was in the 4th grade. And so it was just really, really nice to be able to see it and to hear all of the stories about how it was done and all the sacrifice of the local natives when that canal was built. So just wanted to share that with you, and thank you so very much.
Thanks, Ed. I think keeping us on track and moving us forward isn't a bad thing. I think that's part of your role. So I think that's good. Julie, and then Jana.
Julie, are you
There
on?
we go. There we go.
Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So my name is Julie Jumbia. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a community member. I used to live in the Elliott neighborhood, and now I'm in Vernon neighborhood, so even closer to the project area. It's the freeway is so close and impacts a lot of traffic in the local area. So yeah, I'm really happy to be a member, and look forward to working with you guys today too.
Thank you. Jana?
Good evening. I'm Jana Jarvis. I'm with the Oregon Trucking Association. I'm president and CEO. I've been involved in this discussion for many years. I was involved in the Columbia River crossing discussion, so I bring some of that perspective to the table as well. Obviously, this bridge is extremely important for freight purposes, and so we have a very vested interest in what we end up doing with this bridge. 2022 was a mixed bag for me personally. I had my second grandson. My daughter gave birth to my second grandson in July, which was very exciting. And then about 2 months later, her husband was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we've had quite a fall, but he's doing well under treatment. And so we're expecting good things this year.
Thank you for sharing, Jana.
Mm-hmm.
Robin, looks like you're up next.
Happy New Year, everyone. Robin Richardson. I'm an at-large member. I live in Vancouver and commute to downtown Portland, often by bicycle, but sometimes by car. Very engaged with the business community. I also work in the healthcare industry, so healthcare and the business community are kind of my points of interest here. My pronouns are he, him. What I had a lot of wonderful events in 2022, but I'm most proud of my health. Like some of you, I had some serious health challenges at the end of the year, and I'm glad to start being on the backside of those. And you can be very grateful for all of those, and I am. So thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Ryan?
Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Ryan Webb. I am the Engineering and Community Development Manager for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. This project area is within our ceded lands. I have to say, I think the thing that I'm most proud of for 2022 would probably have to be my wife. She graduated with her master's in child psychology last year. And she managed to do it through the pandemic, through having to homeschool our young children, through everything that threw at us. And she, not only did she graduate, but she graduated with a 4.0. So I have to say I'm exceptionally proud of her for that.
Wow. Thanks, Ryan. Michael, I see that you're on our inner Zoom room. I'm not sure if you want to introduce yourself, if you're in a place to do that, but then I think we might have most of our CAG members who have shared. Just pause for a moment. Okay. Not hearing anyone else, then I will pass it on over to you, Lynn.
Thank you. At this point, I'll provide a little bit of a debrief of the ESG meeting that was held in mid-December. I just want to remind everyone that this group, Ed and I are both seated members of the executive steering group. And so we attend their meetings, we receive the briefings, we have an opportunity to hear the presentations and the dialogue. And so we haven't met in a bit, but I do want to stress that active role that Ed and I play, and also the interest in the other ESG members hearing what it is that we hear from all of you. So I don't want you to think that when you make comments or have insights or information to share, I just want you to know that it's a very dynamic process. It was designed that way intentionally, and Ed and I are doing our best to kind of live up to that expectation. So with regard to the ESG meeting that was held in December, I think the first takeaway is that the topics are remarkably aligned with what we are going to hear during this meeting. Meaning there's a program update from our dynamic, and if I may say, extremely well-dressed program administrator. We received a briefing on the cost estimate and what changed and why, possible funding. One thing that we spent a fair amount of time on, or that I just want to highlight for this group, is the partner conditions. ESG is far more integrated into that because each of 7 of the 8 had partner conditions. And so there's a whole body that when the groups approved the program going forward, they did so in most cases with multiple conditions. Those all appear on our website. I encourage you to go look at them just because it's interesting. Many of them underline the same community goals that we've been working with since day one. In other cases, there are agency-specific interests, and in other cases, there's a few that are a little bit kind of surprising, I guess. So I just found it to be a good read. So there was discussion. I guess speaking to the other members, what I would want to know is what's the feel of that room? And what I would say the feel is that people are really excited about the project. They're really excited about moving it forward, but they're fiercely defensive of their constituents. And so they are very mindful of the fact that they have constituents to respond to, and they are kind of very clear that they are carrying forward constituent expectations. And so it really falls to the project to work to align everything. But there is very much a dynamic energy. I would also be remiss if I didn't say that there was a uniform acknowledgement of former Commissioner Joanne Hardesty's contribution and passion. And so many people spoke quite eloquently about their appreciation for her advocacy, her interest, her collegiality, and willing to work kind of across all of the members to get to a collaborative solution. And then we also received the same presentation that this group will receive shortly around economic impacts, assessment methodologies, and some other information. So all in all, it was a dynamic, engaged meeting. We had some spirited public testimony, but as I said, it was a group that's committed, that's passionate, but also very mindful of the fact that they're representing their constituencies. And I think that's part of why they're so interested in hearing what this group has to say, because we represent a cross section of all of the constituencies. Some of the work that we've done to validate that, the things that CAG feels are important are what the general public feels are important. So I just want to underline the value that each of you provides, not only in representing a specific organization for those of you that do, but also just representing the community at large, because that was done with intentionality. I also just want to say we've all been excited to get into kind of the nitty-gritty of the bridge, and we're getting really close. So for those of you who have been coming to every meeting, thank you, bless your hearts. For those of you whose attendance has been a bit more sporadic, I want to say going forward, this is the time you want to be engaged, because this is when we will get to do some of the work that we've all been excited to do. So sometimes you go slow to go fast. In this case, the program is actually ripping along, but with intentionality. But we're finally to a point where I think we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on some of the elements that are near and dear to our hearts. Thank you.
Great, and if we can get the slides back up, we'll go through quick couple of slides here. Okay, so just a reminder for those of us who remember January 21st, 2020, why this committee was chartered. I'll just go through this real quickly. It's a good refresher for us. The first is for us to develop recommendations on key program issues to help ensure the IBR program outcomes reflect community needs, areas of importance, and concerns. The CAG will serve as a key part of comprehensive community engagement efforts that support ongoing community dialogue with a commitment to meaningful two-way feedback, and that we would have two co-chairs, one representing each state, that will lead the group's diverse and inclusive membership with balanced representation from both Washington and Oregon. So helpful for us to sort of remember this context. Next slide, please. You'll recall from our last meeting, I believe back in November, we asked you, how did you want to spend your time over the next several months? And so we collected that survey data, and overarching programmatic elements were around the bridge design. You wanted to really unpack the budget finance. You also said you wanted to understand some of the federal mandates, as well as the cultural connections. Some of the topics that came up were design and construction, permitting, culturally significant findings, comparative traffic studies, environmental impacts, costs, project impacts, public transit, and mixed use traffic, as well as equity principles and DEI goals. And so this becomes a barometer by which the staff and both Lisa and I, as well as all of those involved, will use to help pre-populate future agendas for CAG. Next slide. Lisa.
So just to build on what Johnell just said, what we're trying to do is be able to provide you with some insight into what the next few meetings might look like. And I will say this is with a bit of a disclaimer that there are a lot of moving pieces with our program. And this is what we think our best estimate for what will be ready to be presented at this point moving forward. And as Lynn said, we're pretty excited because we're actually going to start getting into some of the details that you've been asking for more opportunities to understand and to provide feedback. And so as you can see with this meeting, we're kind of resetting a bit of the agenda and really trying to focus on presenting one key element of what's happening with the program to allow for more dialogue instead of trying to pack our meetings with too many topics. We're going to try and focus. So in February, we really want to spend some time talking about urban design. What does urban design mean? What will it look like for this project, and how it will integrate, kind of design and the urban environment. In March, we anticipate that our financial plan will be ready to share. And if not, that might shift one more month. That is a month that we actually have two things kind of scheduled and on deck. The section 106 is specific outreach that is around cultural and historic properties within the bridge area. Each of these elements that have been outlined within kind of our Q1 work plan are items that we've heard that the CAG is interested in spending some time talking about. There are things happening within the program that we want to make sure that we're integrating CAG voices, and we want to get your input in terms of how do we help share what can sometimes be complex technical information with our community so that they understand it as we continue to move through this process. So right now that looks like what we have on deck, and we hope to be able to share kind of that 3-month look ahead each time that we have the opportunity to spend some time with you. And with that, I think we're gonna
play a video right before Greg. So
that's what okay, great. Yep. We're excited about our 2022, and we have a year in review video that we'll play before Greg provides the program update. All right.
The whole team at Workforce Southwest Washington is excited to see it come into fruition and support the workforce needs associated.
My priority is trying to get this done in a fashion that engages people and the choices that we have to make.
We want to do it together.
Yes,
and we want to do it now, right?
Absolutely.
We want to do it now.
There's no room for pedestrian traffic or biking, and I'm an avid biker.
Public transit is necessary in a lot of places. People may not think so, but people work on the weekends, people work on Saturday and Sunday, and you don't always see that or get that.
We understand that transportation equals independence. Independence equals freedom. And when we can make sure that people have access to that independence and freedom, they can live their lives fully.
We've been working on this for a while, and we all agree that it's time to replace this bridge. I believe we can come together to support a bridge replacement that brings the values of both Oregon and Washington to life.
With that, Mr. Program Administrator, I think you're up.
Oh, first off, that was an outstanding video. And just so you know that the communications team has won 3 different awards related to the work that they are doing for this program. Our website, our social media efforts, and the Bridge Stories interviews that have been done. So the team is turning along, doing great work. So real quick, and these are only a few of the bullets I have to talk to you about. So I'm going to try and go through them quickly, but also thoroughly. So since we last met, there's a lot of things that have been going on. One of the things that folks have heard about and have had questions, we have added the analysis of a second auxiliary lane in each direction to the program. And we recognize this is a controversial piece, but we know that because it is controversial, we have to answer the question of the impacts of a second auxiliary lane along with the study of one auxiliary lane. So that is work that is ongoing, and we will be sharing the outcomes of those studies with this group and others probably late or early in the spring, and it will be a part of the supplemental draft environmental impact statement. So the Coast Guard permit process, we're having a continued conversation with the Coast Guard on the height of the bridge. But along with that conversation with the Coast Guard, we are talking to the 5 impacted users who need something more than 116 feet. So as many of you already know, the Coast Guard did a preliminary finding that says, yep, build a bridge 178 feet tall or create another movable bridge in this space. And we know that this region has voiced the displeasure of having another movable span to replace this existing movable span. So that conversation is continuing to go on. As a matter of fact, our federal partners, Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Authority, we're just meeting with the Coast Guard to have more conversation. So we also have issued a legislative progress report to the Washington State Legislature, which was a requirement from the program. So they are up to date on everything we're doing. Frank Green and myself went up and did a presentation for members of the Washington Legislature of their Transportation Committee back in December. So we also had a bi-state legislative committee meeting, and a number of the things that Co-Chair Valenter spoke of were some of the same things we mentioned or had conversation with the bi-state ledge team. So the main focus was on the cost estimate, the information that you will hear today, the economic impact analysis. So Frank Green is going to walk us through that. We've talked about the executive steering group committee update, but there are a few other things. We're working on a level 2 traffic and revenue study that will be the final determination of how much traffic we anticipate coming through this corridor going out into the future. And we base this on models that are owned and created by both Metro as well as RTC. So you will be seeing those results sometime in the spring. We also are doing program tours. We had the members of the Oregon Legislature tour this project with us in December. And once again, it was eye-opening. We did the same type of tour we did for CAG and EAG. And once again, folks, once they see the constraints in this corridor, they start to understand the difficulties of this project and how you have to reach consensus and be able to compromise on certain issues to get this whole thing moved forward. So it was a good tour. We're also looking at how can we have a tour. We had a request from the business community to do a business community tour of this area. And we want to do it during the session coming up. So as they are talking to their legislators in Oregon and in Washington, that they can understand the context of this bridge. So we also are continuing on our design, and you're going to start seeing some of those outputs. And one of the things that you guys have expressed an interest in is on bridge design. So we are working on a couple of different schemes that will take into account the desire to have a high aesthetic value for the new bridge. So those type of discussions are upcoming. One of the other key discussions that is coming up, and some of you hopefully will volunteer to be a part of, is the community benefits discussion. So we're in the process of creating a community benefits group that will report to the executive steering group, but we'll have members from both the CAG and the EAG on them to talk about what the impacts of this project are and how we can mitigate for those impacts, and what improvements this region wants to see for this bridge sitting in your backyard. So that will be a very vibrant discussion. We're hoping to start selecting members for that group here in the next month. We also, we've been doing continued public meetings. A number of us were on Hayden Island for the high noon meeting. It was a very spirited conversation. Once again, we will go anywhere where folks ask us to come and talk about the bridge. We want to make sure that folks are getting correct information and not misinformation. So our team is available for any time. If you have a community group that wants to hear about the bridge in more detail, we're more than happy to have a group come over and talk to you. We've been doing neighborhood meetings. We've been doing, we had over 100 different meetings in 2022 reaching out to folks. So we also, one important thing that's coming up, the Oregon legislative session is starting here very quick. We have a lot of new members, so I will be spending time down in Salem to help meet and talk to a number of those members and get them up to speed on what this bridge is and what the requirements are, because we are asking them to once again duplicate what Washington State has done and give us $1 billion so we can move forward with our federal grant applications and have those applications be as strong as possible. We've also been meeting with small and minority and women-owned businesses representatives. We met with AWAMI, we've met with PDBG, and several other groups. The last group we haven't met with is Latino Build, and we had that scheduled, but it fell off the calendar, but we're going to get that done hopefully next week to talk about what are the needs of small, minority, women-owned businesses for a project like this. What training is necessary? What support mechanisms are necessary? And finally, we talked about some of the partner conditions that existed, and they were covered. But we take those conditions very seriously, and we cannot say yes to all of them because some of them are in direct opposition of other conditions from partners. So, but we are working through, we issued a letter, and the list is tremendously long, but it is on our website. So please visit our website and take a look at that. And we'll, as we resolve some of these issues, we will have the team that has been working on it come and talk to CAG about the resolution of the partner conditions. So let's go to the next slide. So we applied for a very large bridge investment program grant from the federal government. We knew that we were early in the process. So, but the federal government requested that we put our best foot forward and get a foot in the door. So those were announced just last week. We were not selected at this point, but that is actually not a negative thing. One of the projects that we are competing with for funding and national attention is a project in Cincinnati, Ohio. So that project is approximately 1.5 to 2 years ahead of us, and they are somewhat shovel ready. So we are looking at what their application looked like and the money that they were granted, and our program is approximately twice their size. We are a multimodal project, and once again, we are learning from their application and seeing how much they were given and modifying our application. So federal funding is critical to the completion of this project. We anticipate construction starting in 2025, so having that federal funding in place is necessary. So we will be reapplying for that grant, as well as applying for a mega projects grant from the federal program and several other USDOT grant programs. So we are seeking first to secure our non-federal match from the state of Oregon. So this will be critical to staying on schedule for the record of decision. And you will hear from Frank Green when he goes through the estimate and the risk that we face. Time is one of our biggest challenges, so staying on schedule is key. So once again, we are advancing the program through this supplemental environmental or draft environmental process, and making sure that we are ready for the grant periods that are available to us. So next slide, please. So this is a good lead into to Frank Green covering that cost estimate and why this program is almost twice as expensive as it was back during the CRC days. So Frank, I will turn it over to you to walk folks through this.
Thank you, Greg. And good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome back to one of our meetings. So as Greg mentioned, I'm going to present cost estimates, the cost estimate update that we did, as well as begin to lay out. I know one of the future meetings might dive a little more deeper into, how do you fund a program when we have this updated estimate, but then also speak a little bit about an economic impact analysis that the program did. And so starting with the cost estimate, one of the key things that we wanted to begin the conversation as we're rolling out a new cost estimate is to remind everyone of the estimate that's been out there. And so in late 2020, as part of the requirements that were given to us by the legislatures as we were moving this program, was to look at a conceptual finance plan. And at that time, the program had not really advanced a lot of the discussions that you've been involved in. Really trying to focus on what the definition of the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program is. But we did have a lot of information from the previous efforts that were looked at setting here. And so that estimate in 2020 was really focused on work from the previous program. And if you'll recall, the high end of that estimate in the 2020 timeframe was around $4.8 billion. that estimate was really kind of conducive to a lot of the key elements that the program has right now, looking at a replacement bridge, but it also, tried to take those old costs from the previous program and bring them forward to, the current time frame we're in. This new estimate that I'm about to kind of get into in detail with you, it actually now is reliant on the modified locally preferred alternative. That if you watch that video, is one of those key pieces of kind of progress and consensus with the region that we reached last year with partners. Next slide, please. And so a little bit about the process to develop a cost estimate. As Greg just alluded to, there is a process that we undertake that really WashDOT does on all of their big programs that is called a cost estimate validation process. And what that process allows us to do is to not only look at the materials or the quantities or the buildup of what you would think for a cost estimate, but it allows us to really talk about risk. What are the risks to a program like this? It's the 5-mile stretch of I-5 with a lot of proposed improvements in different locations. And so what are some of the potential risks that a program may have? You can see a list here of some of the kind of examples of risks. They can be schedule risks because, as Greg alluded to with, the difference between cost estimate, over a decade ago and now, time does end up usually on a program like this costing, more money. And so delay in schedule, can sometimes add cost. But we also have to look at things like market conditions and what is the availability of materials or labor. The fact that we're designing a 5-mile corridor, there are some things that until you really get out there to build it, you may not know are there. And so we have the ability with this process to quantify an estimate, with the designs that we have, but also identify risks that we can then model so that we can get a range of costs for the program. Next slide, please. And so getting a little bit more specific about what is in this estimate for the kind of the scope, there's a base cost estimate, there's a range of these risks, and then we add inflation, meaning we do take this estimate and we try to put it onto the schedule, the target schedule that we have for when we're delivering it. So, if a construction contract, for example, is going to start in late 2025 or early 26, we actually use this process to identify what we think the expected cost of this program would be, at that time, because we know there's, a couple of years between now and there. But what scope is included, you can see on this table here on the chart, we included a replacement bridge over the Columbia River. As you're aware, we've had a lot of discussion about replacing the bridge over the North Portland Harbor as well. So that's included in this estimate. We do have one auxiliary lane, the light rail extension into downtown Vancouver with the addition of 3 stations. The partial interchange on Hayden Island that was discussed is included, as well as the full interchange on Marine Drive, as well as that local connection bridge between Hayden Island and Marine Drive. What's not listed here, but is also included, are active transportation improvements on the bridge themselves, but connecting to the interchanges and making sure that we can connect to the City of Portland network and the City of Vancouver network, as well as some of the interchanges like Mill Plain and some improvements to interchanges in Washington as well. Next slide, please. And one of the questions we get is, how is that scope really different since the previous program? We went through the whole process, worked with this group, worked with other groups to, identify what has changed since the previous program, and then we identified design options. And so here's a few lists of maybe how the scope right now is different from that previous effort. I think as I just mentioned, the replacement of the North Portland Harbor is now included in the modified locally preferred alternative. It previously was a seismic retrofit. Light rail is still the mode of transit that's being chosen to be extended, but how it gets into Washington and where it goes is a little different. We're running it elevated kind of adjacent to I-5, rather than through the city streets as some of the previous discussion had. And you can see a few of the other items on here as well. With connections to some of the ramps and how Hayden Island interchange, kind of coordinates and connect with Marine Drive. So this is just the list to explain some of the scope differences on the project from the previous program. Next slide, please. And so with that, I want to mention that when we do this modeling process, we get a range of costs. So right now you'll see that from the cost estimate validation process, the range of costs that we see that this program could cost is somewhere between $5 billion on the low end and $7.5 billion on the high end. Now, why the big difference in the cost estimate, I think, is one of the first questions we get. And so just diving into it a little bit there with an explanation, the low end of the cost is, remember we said we identify risks, we identify schedule, we put this estimate onto a timeline. If we're able to completely avoid all risks, mitigate for any risk that come up, hit every schedule milestone that we have, and not really encounter any delay, this program could cost in the $5 billion range. Now, if some of the risks that we've identified or the schedule impacts or them come to fruition and we're not able to avoid all of them, that's where you start to see the cost really, grow. And that's kind of getting to what Greg was talking about a little earlier about, that really trying to stay on target is very important for this program. But as a part of this process with identifying those risks, the team comes up with a risk management strategy for those risks. What can we do to avoid a risk, taking, several months if it occurs? And with that risk management strategy, we see that the most likely cost out of this modeling becomes around $6 billion. And so that is where we look at, we know we're going to encounter some unknowns, but do we have a plan to be able to address it so that it doesn't cause, multiple months of delay or more? And so that's really kind of where the range of costs are right now on the program, somewhere between 5 and 7.5 billion. And as I mentioned, it is the modified locally preferred alternative that I know we've presented, previously at this group. And so, go one more slide, please. Some of the factors that we saw as we were going through this process that really did kind of influence the increase in cost that we see from even the 2020 timeframe are since that late 2020 timeframe when we did the previous estimate, we've seen inflation on a lot of our construction materials and on the delivery of materials. Global supply chain issues have really kind of risen. There's other regional projects that as we went through this modeling process, you see, there's going to be a lot of construction work going on. So availability of contractors and skilled workers to be able to do the work are going to, maybe mean we have to shift how we deliver a project like this. And, there's several other market conditions, but I'd like to go to the next slide and kind of show kind of some of the trends that we see in the material, construction material costs. So there's a lot of lines on this chart, and really what the intention of this chart was trying to show is these are types of materials that you typically would see in a major construction project. If you go down the list on the right, you see, steel or plastic, lumber and plywood's needed whenever you're going to, create, forms for construction and concrete. So these are, some fairly typical construction materials, and you can see that this chart kind of maps the trends of how those costs and how those materials have kind of gone up in price, even since 2020, as I mentioned, since the last time we did the estimate. And, some of them are fairly volatile, so like, for example, lumber, if you can follow the purple line on there, as the pandemic hit, lumber really skyrocketed. And then, we saw the price of that come back, and then we saw it go back up again. You can kind of follow that trend depending on what it is. And so, as I had mentioned, this process of the cost estimate validation allows us to see these trends, to understand a little bit about them, and then put that into a model so that we're not missing that, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now when certain construction contracts begin, that the market for some of these materials may be different. And so I wanted to pause for a second before I go to the next slide and ask if there are any questions about the cost estimate, because the next slide I'm going to transition a little bit to, now with the estimate kind of being developed, what are some of the ways that we think we can financially plan to pay for, the cost estimate as it is? Dina, I see your hands up.
Yeah. So when you were showing that slide with the lines of the different construction costs, was that just construction in general, or does that also take into account the lack of availability of certain things that are made in America to comply with Buy America provisions for federal funding that you would be required to comply with as part of receiving federal grant funding? So does it make it even more, or is that already included in that curve?
So that's a really good question, Dina. I think we got those statistics from, I think, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, as far as if it gets to Buy America or Buy American, the federal requirements. I don't know that might be in here. I think this really gets down to the material cost and the delivery cost. But we can double check that and let you know for sure. But my understanding was it was just what we've seen. If you're going to go to Home Depot and buy lumber, you saw that price really went up for a while, and it came back, and then it went back up. And so I think this was mostly based on kind of the supply chains that were being surveyed. But it is a good question, because that is absolutely something dependent on revenue source that we'll be mindful of as we're putting contracts together and getting ready to build this. That there are very, very certain requirements sometimes based on the source of funds where you can get those materials. Good question. Sam?
Yeah, just following up on Dana's question regarding supply chain and American source versus internationally sourced. America, even when it's trying to be tamed, the economy is red hot and the inflation is very high. So I'm not going to say the R word, but as the economy cools down and slows down and so forth, isn't it conceivable that these ridiculous price jumps will reverse itself? And if the economy slows down sufficiently, I don't know how high the interest rate will become, but I was alive when interest rates were in the double digits previously, and that really cooled the economy down. So we might be a beneficiary of such measures. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Sam. As we're going through this model, that's one of the things that you discuss as a group. You bring, we have the subject matter experts that come in and talk about it, and we don't in the modeling see this, this kind of upward. Like if you were looking at the chart, steel has really gone up in the last few years, but we're not saying that that's going to continue at that same trajectory for the next 10, 15, 20 years. We do think that in the short term, some of these costs will still be, escalating, because that's how costs do over time, and they always are rising. But maybe they'll come back to more what we saw pre-pandemic at a lower rate of increase, and that is incorporated, as I said, into the CVIP work and the modeling that we do. We're expecting to be putting out a report, sometime a little later, the first quarter here. There's a lot of work to do to put the report together and get it done, and that information will be in there. So I won't say the R word either. I was going to give a West Wing reference and call it donut, but we won't say that either.
Thank you, Frank.
Robin?
Yeah, Frank, do you have a similar cost impact in regards to the workforce shortage? Many industries right now are not only suffering from just a lack of labor, but a lack of skilled labor. And this project will be competing with other major workforce initiatives like the semiconductor industry and the whole focus on converting labor focused on that. Do we have any cost estimates or any graphs similar to what you did on the cost of the materials?
That's a good question. We do not have a chart like that, but that is maybe something we can see if we can look into. As we are identifying some of the different risks to the program, that is one of the things we think about. As I mentioned, with a $6 million program, we're going to be working to see how many different construction contracts there will be, and so there will be a lot of construction, not just on our program, but in the region as well, going on at the same time. And so that is absolutely one of those key things that we think about as we're trying to figure out the size of some of the contracts and when going to add with them eventually, advertisement with them, we would eventually be doing. There are some risks identified in the CVIP, really trying to talk exactly about, some of those concerns. So I don't have a chart to share, but I can let you know, we had conversations about that through this process.
And in addition to the workforce shortage, it might be important to think about the training needs that we might need during, pre-construction, where we might be able to train welders, or we might be able to do partnerships with things to develop that workforce. That's the other problem. If we don't start looking at what the workforce needs are, we may have a problem, one of those risks that you're just talking about.
So Frank, if I can jump in on this issue real quick. Robin, one of the things we're seeing on the larger projects around the country to not only attract, but also retain workforce is that different projects are offering premiums over and above wages and benefits. They're offering premiums to keep workers on projects. So this is a trend that we've never seen before. So, but as far as the training, we've been having a running conversation with labor and some of the training entities in the region. We've talked to Workforce Southwest. I'm going to get their name wrong, but somebody correct me, because I know you guys are part of our CAG, but we've been having a conversation.
You got it right.
All right. We've been having a conversation about a grant application that they are looking to put forward that will reflect this need to create a homegrown workforce here, because whatever company comes in to build the bridge, they aren't going to be bringing hundreds of people from around the country. They're going to rely on workers here to get that thing built. So it is an issue that we are thinking about and working on, and hopefully as we go into this community benefits discussion, community workforce discussion, we'll be solidifying our training and pre-apprenticeship plans for the program.
Thanks, Greg. That's a great response.
Robert, I think.
Yeah, hey, thank you. I'm driving, so I got to keep my camera off, but thank you, Frank. Robert Camarillo here. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Oregon State Building Construction Trades Council. We're an umbrella organization, represent over 31 trade unions. We got 29 training centers across the state. And so to help you unpack that a little bit more, we are already training this workforce. We already have this process moving forward, because when that project breaks ground, there's not going to be any time to develop a workforce. That workforce has to already be developed before the project starts. And that is something that we've already been committed to. And in 2 years, we don't know what the work scope is going to look like. So that may be the only project that is in the region. So without you surveying our folks, which I don't think you have, because I have not heard from any of them, I have not heard from you. So you have not received accurate information from any of our folks, and I would appreciate it if you would. I'm happy to connect you with our people so you can get an idea what their forecast looks like, what the workload looks like, what the pipeline looks like that we're feeling. So I don't know that that's fair of you to throw the construction workforce piece in there without having input from our folks. That's what we do. We train the work. We train the men and women that work with the tools that are going to build these projects. And that is something that we are doing consistently, and we have been for decades, right? That's what we do. And so I'd love to connect with you to try to put you in touch with the right folks so you can get accurate information if we're going to be lumped into the cost of this project as one of the reasons why the cost is going up.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. And we will pick you up on that. And I don't want to, I didn't want to imply that the cost of the workers were the increase. It was more, as we were looking at it, we were trying to figure out, how many, we may have contracts that we delay a little bit, or we figure out how to build this in different pieces, because there is a lot of work going on at the same time. So I wasn't trying to imply that the workforce was the reason for the increase. It's really how do we break this into deliverable packages. But we'll absolutely coordinate and reach out to you if
and the reason I say that, Frank, is that we have never failed to build a project or get it done on time and on budget. And if you do find one, please let me know, because I'm still looking. And so there's a reason that we continue to build these sophisticated projects across the state, across the country, is that we deliver the best skilled labor that's out there. So I'm confident that we will have the skilled labor available for any size contractor, any classification. It's there. We will have it trained.
So Robert, if I can just comment, we were not specifically looking at the Oregon workforce. We're looking at mega trends in the industry. We know that the construction workforce across the country is aging. And we know that a number of other areas have seen these trends of shortages in workforce. It's a risk that we are looking at and making sure we are addressing. And we agree with you. We're going to work with you guys to make sure that we have enough trained workforce to get this thing done and to supply us for the 8 to 9 years of work that this project will entail. So just looking at mega trends across the country and other programs of this size, whether it's in transportation or vertical, that they are experiencing.
And Dina, is your hand a holdover from before, or you got another question?
Yeah, I do have another question. I'm sorry,
great.
I wasn't paying as close attention to all the things that you had listed that were included sort of in the cost estimates. And I was curious if that was just looking at the construction of the bridge itself, or if it also included sort of all the stuff that ramps up to it, like the permitting and EIS process, and then any potential additional environmental mitigation that may be required as a result of the work that has to be done in sensitive environments.
Yeah, this good question, and thanks for that to help me clarify that for everyone else. Is that this is a all-inclusive cost estimate, and so this is all of the work that we're doing right now, with modeling and design and the environmental work. It's all the work to, deliver. So to get contractors on board, to finish design, to actually do the construction, and anything needed with our permits, our regulatory permits, or anything like that. And so, yes, it is fully inclusive of all of those numbers. Well, I think, we'll have an opportunity a little bit later to see if there's more questions, but I do think it would be good to move forward. I wanted to pause since, it's kind of a big number, and wanted to let people ask really good questions. So now we want to be able to show, we're still working on our finance plan. But based on kind of where we're at right now, and some of the, existing work we've already done, we wanted to be able to give, a sense of where we could potentially find some of these, some money to pay for this. And so the question you just asked, was really good, because as you see on this chart, the sources for funding that we're proposing at this point, they include some of the existing money that we have to be doing the work, with this EIS. There's the state. It really comes down to, we're going to be looking for a state contribution. We're going to be looking for some user costs with tolls, and we'll be looking to go really aggressively after some of our federal funding opportunities that are out there. And I know Greg touched upon that a little bit earlier. But as you can see here, there's existing funds that have been provided to the program. Move Ahead Washington was a program last year that the Washington legislature moved forward to provide $1 billion for the program. We'll be working very closely with the Oregon legislature to see some kind of a similar contribution on the Oregon side. As I mentioned with tolling, there was a lot of work done in the previous program to see what tolling could contribute to the program as far as being able to help with capital costs. And so you see there's a range on there, and that's really consistent with the 2020 conceptual finance plan we did and some of the CRC toll funding work. But the federal grants is also something I wanted to touch upon. There's really there's three major federal grants that, the program is really looking to actively pursue in this upcoming, calendar year. There's a program that we call the MEGA program. There's a bridge investment program, as well as a capital improvement grant program. So those are three programs that we think this program is really well suited to pursue and be competitive for. The capital improvement grant, the last of the three that's on the list here, is really an FTA, a federal transit program that can help us fund the light rail side of the modified locally preferred alternative. And so all in all, if you look at these sources, right now we can see with the range, there's somewhere between $5.2 billion and $6.4 billion, almost 6.5 that we think we can pursue. And so, as I said, we're going to be really aggressive and try to push toward, kind of the right end of those ranges so that we can, move this program forward and have a way to actively fund it. I say this as a proposed because we're actively still doing some analysis, like with the tolling, to figure out with the modeling for our DEIS. This range is still somewhat based on CRC, so we want to do updated modeling. What does that modeling look like now? What might we be able to get out of that source? So I really, with that, I think one of the big things that we want to talk about is, we've got this proposed $6 billion program. You've seen some of the sources where funds can come from. What do we get out of this? We wanted to run an economic impact analysis that really helps us, identify what are the, how will the IBR construction, really benefit our region? We know that there's the purpose and need that we're building the project to address, but, this is a lot of money to bring into our region and to spend in the economies here of Portland and Vancouver. And so how do we really assess what that means? This economic impact analysis we'll also try to estimate how many jobs might be created from construction, because I think that's a very important aspect of people who are, we've heard some comments already today, people who are interested in this program because, they may have an opportunity to be a part of constructing it or designing it. And so if you can go to the next slide. Where does this economic impact really evaluate, the benefits from? There's the direct impact that you get, like from directly maybe working on the program. If you're a designer or a contractor, you get a salary or you get paid by doing that. But in order to build it, you also see indirect impacts of the materials that you need to build the program, or the different businesses that need to be involved with the contractors who are building it or the designers who are building it. And all of those people make a salary from the program and then spend it in the community. So you can see there's the direct, indirect, and tertiary impact and benefits that a program like this can have. Next slide. And so, with the identification of a $6 billion program and, some of those sources I mentioned, which, there's a lot of them that are federal that we're going after, we see in this initial analysis that, the region will actually see over $11 billion of economic benefit from constructing this program. There's new economic activity that's a part of this. And what that means is that equates to, jobs. So you can see that directly for the construction of the program, we're seeing that there's about 18,000 person-year jobs. So that's on any given year, you would have about that many jobs total. Gross employment in the 43,000 range, and that means new employment opportunities on year by year of about 14,000. And so we'll be continuing to refine this as we're refining our cost estimates. But we really wanted to, show from the initial work we've done what bringing this money into our region. Like I said, some of it's state funds that come here, but bringing federal funds that wouldn't be in the region if it weren't for this program. We really wanted to be able to show what that might mean from a benefit standpoint. Next slide. So I know, how am I doing on time, Lisa or Johnell? Are we getting pretty close? So I probably can go through these fairly quickly. Then we can open up for questions. Okay.
Yeah, maybe about 4 more minutes.
Okay.
Thanks for checking, Frank.
So as I mentioned, we're going to continue to update our cost estimates as the program moves forward. We'll be continuing to also look at those risks that we've identified and continue to make sure we're on target with the mitigation strategies to avoid those risks becoming something. But we're going to continue to do cost estimates and work on ways to, minimize the cost. Are there value engineering opportunities or design innovations or refinements we can make as the program moves forward to make sure that the cost estimate of this program matches with the funding that we're obtaining. Next slide. And as I mentioned, that this estimate does set the foundation for the more developed finance plan that'll be coming a little bit later, and we'll be, I think I saw on the agenda to be talking to this group, I think in March. Really, like I said, we're working on understanding tolling a little bit better. Tolling from the previous program to now, it has changed within our region, and so we want to make sure our modeling is capturing that. But on a mega program like this, cost estimating is this bullet says, it is a fairly dynamic process. We know that as we're going through design and development, that we're going to probably find areas where we want to shift the design to a different direction. So we need to make sure that we're continually capturing what that means to the cost estimate. We're going to be transparent and share that with this group as we're updating. And so next slide. So I think if there's any more questions that you guys have, we'd open them up here. And then also this is a really technical, robust amount of information. If there's something, ideas or thoughts about maybe how better share this, I'm an engineer, so it rolls off my tongue. So sometimes I don't know if I'm saying it right to everyone, but we're interested in hearing feedback as well on maybe how the presentation might be more shareable as we get it into the community and whatnot. Sam, I see your hands up.
Yeah, Frank, sorry to keep on hammering on this, but it seems like these are kind of rough order of magnitude numbers, right? They're round numbers. They're like plus or minus, it seems like at best 10% estimates. And it appears that also you're using today's numbers. Again, I'm not going to use the R word, but if economy slows down and so forth, it is possible that this could change perhaps a little bit, maybe even more drastically. But also, I think you noted in slide 26 that as time goes on, you'll be able to more accurately pinpoint what the cost will be. And is that correct, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. As we advance design, we're going to get there's going to be less unknowns for a cost estimate. So we'll know more about what the quantities are, things like that. And from a financing or a funding perspective, they are round numbers right now because, like, the example I'll give is we submitted the bridge grant at 750, and the expectation was we were going to also maybe submit for the mega grant at 750. So they are somewhat round numbers. But if I gave the impression that a lot of these costs are in today's dollars, I should have been more explicit about that. That these are in what we refer to as year of expenditure dollars, meaning we have projected, what is the cost of the bridge to build 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, based on what our schedule is, when that bridge or when that wall or whatever the element is would be constructed. And so we have tried to take into account, materials and everything will be more expensive in the future than they are today. That's why we've tried to project our estimate into that year that we're going to actually be expending it. So the funding we're going after now should cover the cost of a construction project that might not start for 2 or 3 years. So I don't know if that really addresses kind of the question you're getting at about costing in today's dollars.
Yeah, maybe real quickly, follow up, and then Bill, and then we need to get on to the next topic.
Yeah, I apologize. Just real quick, you're projecting an increase, but if the feds have the impact that they want to have, there could be a decrease.
A decrease in the materials cost and things like that,
or even wages.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sam, if I can address that issue, and I was just listening to a story today that talks about sticky inflation. Once a price goes up so high, it sticks. It doesn't go back down to where it was prior. So that's a phenomenon. You don't see projects even during a recession that are significantly cheaper than where inflation took them to in the transportation world. But that's always a possibility. This is a dynamic process that we're doing. This is not the only time we're going to do this cost estimation and risk validation process. So we will be repeating this annually as we get more information and better information with the design, and keeping an eye on where inflation is going.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Frank.
This is Bill. I'm just going to jump in here. Just as an average citizen, and the people that I talk to in the streets and the bars, wherever else, I think it'll be a lot easier to explain the costs if you have some pictures of what this bridge is going to look like in the long run. So as you move forward in the design and et cetera, they'll be able to see what this money is going to be spent for, and not just, well, okay, we see all this, all these personnel, products, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean a lot when you don't really see what the bridge is going to look like in the long run. So I think as you get further down the road, you'll be able to explain the costs a little better, and hopefully by then the costs may have leveled out a little bit more, or whichever way it's going to go, we'll have a better idea. That's just an average citizen coming off the street saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" Thank you. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's one of the pieces of feedback that I think will be helpful is how do we best display this and portray it. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Frank. And with that, we will now turn over to Salome Chimuku, who will provide an update on IBR community engagement. Salome.
Thank you, Johnell. So hello, everyone. It's been a while since I presented in front of you, but it is nice to see and hear all of you again. My name is Salome Chimuku. I work with the larger communications team, as well as with the community engagement team. And so I'm just going to go over a few highlights of the community engagement that we have done thus far since the last time that we have spoken. So we had a equity roundtable event called Accessibility Through Infrastructure that happened in December. We've had 4 stakeholder organization meetings. We've met with 3 different neighborhood associations, 5 different property owners, as well as the Vancouver Transportation and Mobility Commission. And as you can see on this slide, with our upcoming engagement, we have engagement that will be prior to release of our supplemental draft environmental impact statement. Some of those include briefings, our miniature grant partnerships, listening sessions, more roundtables, open houses, and more. With these future engagement, we're looking at design elements such as bridge design, transit station design and access, bridge aesthetics, and active transportation design. We'll also be looking at community benefits and workforce opportunities. Here, an engagement that's coming up within this month is that there will be an underwater surveying done of the North Portland Harbor area. And what that entails is there will be a side scan sonar to collect underwater data and conditions. and this will be happening in late January to early February. We will be providing notifications such as direct mailers, stakeholder emails, and also on the ground canvassing, as well as providing website updates. And this is just to identify information that will help with further investigation of the soil and the water, and also help with our cultural resources team analyzing the area. Next slide. And so one of the questions, oh, sorry, I will actually pass this to Johnell. Go ahead, Johnell.
Great. And so what we wanted to do is just take some time to ask you two questions, which is whose voices are missing that we should be engaging, and how would you recommend we engage with specific stakeholders and the public at large, as well as this is an opportunity to receive any questions you might have about what Salome shared. So with that, we'll open it up. Questions, comments, thoughts about community engagement?
Okay, I'll just throw something out there. Seems like Clark County itself is not a stakeholder, right? Even though Clark County will be vastly impacted. So I'm just wondering, is there, we had a Clark County fair in August. Were we present there? Because I went there and I admit I didn't see everything, but I don't know if we were there or not.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for that question. And I just want to clarify, when you say Clark County, do you mean Clark County as a region or Clark County Commission? Just want to make sure I answer your question correct.
Yeah, the government of Clark County runs the Clark County Fair. And so I guess it's both. The Clark County Council, of course, has an opinion on it, and there's a new members elected to that. It'd be good to hear their voice. And because they also own the Clark County Fair, it seems like there's a big opportunity when so many people are there.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, we did go to several different engagement opportunities that were within Clark County itself. Some of those were some of those neighborhood association presentations that I talked about. And over the summer, we were in Clark County going to some of the events as well. This year, we'll be planning to go to more events in the area. And so I do know that the Clark County Fair was an option that we will be discussing about getting staffing there. And so we have been engaging on the ground in Clark County. As far as engagement with the Board of Commission of Clark County, that would be more into leadership, as they are the ones who meet with those stakeholders because they are a stakeholder in this conversation.
Yeah, so maybe we can, Salome, maybe we can have Greg just offer some commentary. I know we've met a fair amount with members of various elected officials. Greg?
So we have met with individual Clark County commissioners back, I want to say it was early in 2022. And we're hoping to keep the conversation with those folks moving forward. We understand some of the positions that they have taken, and we've been having ad hoc conversations, but Sam, you're right. We need to make sure that we are including their voice in this conversation. They are not one of the official transportation partners, but they are a stakeholder to this program. So.
Yeah, just real quick, I appreciate that. Also because there's a new majority on the Clark County Council.
Okay. We will seek them out in the upcoming days and weeks to set up meetings with them and to discuss the program.
Okay. And lastly, Salome, if you needed volunteers, I'd be willing to man the booth.
Thank you, Sam, for that. We definitely heard you all loud and clear the last CAG meeting when you expressed interest in tabling with us. And so we definitely are putting that into our considerations and planning for the events that we attend this year.
Thank you.
And Salome, just for that, could you give it 30 seconds in terms of if folks do want to volunteer, how do they do that?
Yes. And so if folks would like to volunteer and just make sure that they are in the loop on some of those events, feel free to contact me directly, and I will make sure that we engage with you upon that. We also do send out information consistently regarding our roundtables as well. That's how other advisory group members have been engaged. And so please do not be alarmed if you get an email from me. It's most likely just asking you or telling you about events that are coming up and seeing if you're interested in participating.
Great. Tom?
Thank you. I know that you have done outreach to the individual neighborhood associations, but given that there are 97 neighborhood associations in Portland, I'm sure you haven't hit them all. So I would like to recommend you reach out to the district coalitions. They're formed into 7 district coalitions that meet on a regular basis, where you can reach between 10 and 15 neighborhood associations at once. Because I know that I've talked to members of neighborhood associations that are further away from the bridge, but still have concerns about access and traffic flow, especially, from our point of view regarding MLK Marine Drive interchange and how the access patterns are anticipated to flow from the more remote neighborhoods, say in further northeast or even in southeast, if they're coming in from 47th Street or something. How are they going to get from MLK onto the bridge to cross over to Vancouver? These traffic flow issues are of concern beyond just the local regions. And I think reaching out through the district coalitions, you can get access to some of those questions perhaps more easily than trying to do outreach to just the individual neighborhood associations.
Thank you for that, Tom. I will keep that in mind, especially as we work with the City of Portland and PBOT to do outreach to those neighborhood associations and communities.
Okay, we have Bill and Whitney, and I couldn't check to see which one was first. So maybe we go with Whitney and then Bill. Me?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I had a question regarding slide 36, I believe it was. Prior to the underwater survey, is there a plan to invite stakeholders to attend and participate in the study? I guess I have 3 questions. That question about inviting participants to inviting stakeholders to participate and attend. And secondly, what is the plan for the items found? You said that it's for archaeologists and cultural resources team. Wondering what the plan is for items found. And then will a similar survey take place anywhere else?
So I'll answer 2 pieces of that and defer to the other team to answer the second piece that's a little bit more technical. So to your first piece in terms of surveying, the surveying is looking at the riverbeds and the soil. It's not surveying of individuals. And so there isn't really much in terms of engagement with individuals other than letting folks know who are property owners in that area, letting them know that surveying is happening so they're not wondering what this boat is doing as it goes down in the river. And to your third point in terms of engagement and participation, the community engagement team is committed to making sure that you all know of engagement for you all to participate in or to help us with. As we move forward, we do know that there's many things that we can be involved in, and we are only human, so we're going to try our best to make sure that we make the most of your enthusiasm and your willingness to work with us to reach more people. And we will make sure that you are aware of engagement opportunities in which we may ask for you to invite people, ask if you want to come and represent the CAG, or if you would like to just simply table and hang out with me. I will refer back to Greg and Frank maybe to answer your second piece around what will be done with those items, as I am not 100% certain.
So I'll jump in, and yeah, thank you for the question, Whitney. Haley Reth on our team, who I know you know and coordinate with, is actually coordinating the archaeological and cultural resource piece. And so I just want to kind of reiterate what Salome said, which is this is really just surveying the bottom of the harbor and bottom of the river to understand what the depth is, and if there is anything that we need to know about, that as we progress forward with construction and whatnot, if there's something we need to remove. So we shouldn't actually physically take into possession at this time any resources. It's really identifying kind of what the underwater surface of the bed of the river looks like. But I'm sure if you would like to know when it's happening or what the process is, Haley probably will have more information, and we can share that with the rest of this group too if there's interest.
Okay, thank you for that, Frank and Salome. I really appreciate it. Look forward to the updates from Haley.
Great, Bill.
Hey, just a real quick, I want to say you've got to handle, I think what you are, handling it like a political campaign and hit as many constituents as you can and give them the information, get it out. That's what you're trying to do. So I think if you hit, when Greg and others are talking to the politicians in the areas, ask them what groups have really the outreach that they need, that they're looking for, get ideas from them who we should be talking to. Even Ed's been in politics for a long time. He knows he's got people he can probably guide to, at least, or get counsel from, of who put campaigns together and help politicians win their offices. So it's those kinds of networking activities that really get some people and some organizations that maybe we've missed over the long term.
Excellent suggestion.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? We have a couple of minutes left before we go into public comment. Hearing or seeing none, Lisa, turn it over to you for public comment.
I think Mr. Washington is trying to unmute to make a comment.
You're
Ed's
muted,
going to
Ed.
share some insights here, Ed. We can't hear the insights.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to say to Mr. Green, thank you so very much for your presentation. And I think that based on what was stated by Lynn earlier, you can see the number of questions that you got. But thank you very much, Frank. Excellent job. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. With that, Lisa, we'll turn it over to you for public comment.
Okay, and it looks like we have several folks that are interested in providing feedback to us. So at this time, I'm hoping we can pull up the slides one more time just so that we can run through those directions. And then we will get started with our public comment. So again, to make public comment, verbal public comments will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during this time right now. You have the option to turn on your web camera, and we are going to ensure that we allow for folks to be able to share their feedback, but we do have a limited amount of time. And so while I never like to have to cut anyone off, I will ask that you wrap up your comments so that we allow others to have an opportunity to share their feedback. If you'd like to call in via phone, you can do that utilizing the phone number 1-669-900-6833 or 1-408-638-0968. You may enter the meeting ID 993-5459-6043, passcode 674942. Dial *9 to raise your hand. After you're invited to speak, dial *6 to unmute yourself. And like I mentioned, we have about a 10-minute time period that we are planning to utilize time to open it up to the public for an opportunity to share your feedback with the CAG. Again, we ask that that you use these instructions. So next slide, and I'll be timing how long each speaker has. If you're unable to make comments or you have additional comments that you're not able to complete during the time in which we invite you to share your comments via the email info@interstatebridge.org. Please make sure that you address it with the subject line CAG Public Comment so that we're able to provide direct comments into the info box to our CAG members. Next slide. Okay, so with that, Brent, I was just trying to multitask and get the timer up. It looks like you're ready to go. So we're going to allow 2 minutes per speaker during this time period. And as I mentioned, we have several folks that are interested. So it looks like about 5 right now. So I am going to go ahead and call your name if I see your name and or the last 4 digits of your phone number. So the first up is John Lay. John, are you with us? Oh, here we go, connecting to audio. So next up will be phone number ending in 6225. So just be ready. John, it looks like we're ready and we can see you in the Zoom room. So go ahead, your 2 minutes will begin as soon as we get started. John, I can't hear you. There you go.
Hi, thank you. John Lee, Clark County.
Go ahead and share your feedback, John.
Oh, yep. Thank you, John Lee, Clark County. I'm wondering if someone can explain the decline in 22,000 daily riders on the transit. The original. There's feedback. I'm not sure what's going on.
John, we can hear you. I'm not hearing any feedback. You can go ahead and keep going. Brent, can you hear some feedback? Okay.
We try to come back to John. John, I think maybe you might be logged in on YouTube. Maybe just use your Zoom audio. And so we'll come back to you, John, see if you can get it worked out. And Lisa, why don't we go to the next commenter?
All right, so the next person on the list is Kirk. And then following Kirk is AJ Gomez. So please go ahead and get ready to provide public comment. I don't see Kirk entering the room. Brent, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't see Kirk or AJ, either one.
Okay, it looks like. Okay, John, are you back? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you, John Lee. Okay. And it was the YouTube, so humble apologies that apparently had a delayed transmission. I'm wondering if someone can explain the decline of 22,000 average daily riders on transit that came out. It was released in December. The original projection was for 26 to 33,000 average daily riders across the river every day on the I-5 corridor. And in December, that was reduced to 11,000. That's a 200% decline. Supposedly, both of those projections came from the RTC and Metro. And it was briefed earlier tonight that the traffic projections will be coming from inputs from RTC and Metro. So if RTC and Metro were that far off in their transit ridership projections earlier, we need to know, one, what is a realistic transit ridership number? C-Tran is only carrying about 1,000 people a day right now across the river in the pandemic, and their own projections do not call for ridership to get back to pre-pandemic levels until after 2027. So because these are very expensive projections and part of this project for high capacity transit, we need to know that we can trust the projections, and especially with the light rail component being potentially $1.3 billion, that's extremely expensive if there is no demand. So thank you for your patience, and I look forward to getting an explanation on where the transit ridership numbers came from and what they really are.
Thank you, John. Next up is Kirk. So it looks like you've joined our Zoom room, and you have 2 minutes. Go ahead and address the Community Advisory Group, Kirk.
Actually, yes, I am Kirk, but I'm just interested in listening and hearing what's going on at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay. We have another member of the community, AJ Gomez, but it looks like we're having a difficult time connecting to audio. Brent, are you seeing that as well? Okay. All right. We do have, okay, I think that's all of the folks that have wanted to join for public comment. Brent, is that what you're seeing?
That's what I'm seeing as well.
Okay, thank you. Johnell?
Shannon, if you could pull up, and maybe by then AJ audio will connect up the what's next slide. Okay, what's next, you might ask? Next slide, please. We are going to have the Equity Advisory Group will meet January 23rd. Then we will have our next Community Advisory Group meeting on February 9th. Can't believe it's already almost February. The Bi-State Legislative Committee and the Executive Steering Group meetings have not been scheduled, but do take a look at the website for those updates. Next slide. And that wraps up our meeting. I yield to Greg first, if there are any last comments you'd like to make.
Thank you, Johnell. I'd just like to thank once again the Community Advisory Group for giving up your time. This has been 2022 has been a very momentous year in reaching certain goals. 2023 is going to be just as important, and your input is necessary, and it was helpful as we went through the locally preferred alternative. But as we go through the draft supplemental, your views and your input are going to help shape what that document looks like. So once again, thank you for your time and efforts that you put forward. So we'll see you in February.
And we'll ask Co-Chair Washington and Co-Chair Valenter. Any last comments from you?
Let Lynn go first.
I cede my time to my colleague, Ed.
Okay. And I cede my time back to the group. So let's go eat dinner. Have a good evening, okay?
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank
you. February. Have a good night. See you next month.
Bye-bye.
And AJ, feel free to reach out via written comment for your comment. Sorry we weren't able to get your audio together. So have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.